Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Greg Green, and I'm excited to be here tonight. Before we get started, I would just ask all the educators in the room, please give yourselves a round of applause. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without educators, so thank you so much. I want to tell you guys exactly what we're going to do this evening. I want to talk about the power of business partnerships. I want to talk about pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships. And then I want to finish with lifelong learning. And so, like I said, I'm excited to be here. If you guys see me fading, I want you guys to push your hands up like this and tell me to pick it up. I want this to be fun. I'm fun. And I want to have a good time for the next 30 minutes. So, tonight, our story begins with Alexander the Great. Now, many of you may know Alexander the Great. He was known for many things. He was known as an amazing military strategist. He was also known as a conqueror. But tonight, we're going to go to the city of Gordium, where Alexander found himself facing the infamous Gordian knot. Now, this knot was so intricately tied that no one could unravel it. It was a puzzle. And the prophecy said that whoever could unravel this knot would become the ruler of Asia. So Alexander, not wanting to back down from the challenge, he stood before the knot. But what he was about to do next was about to stun onlookers. Alexander drew his sword, and he sliced right through the Gordian knot, effectively solving the puzzle. Now, he went on to conquer Persia, became the ruler of Asia. What do you think? Brilliance or bravado? And that is where our story begins. You see, I'm no Alexander, but I do know what it's like to face a seemingly impossible knot. I was a kid from Richmond that grew up with ADHD. I was in and out of schools. I was hanging with the wrong crowd. I was heading nowhere fast. But like Alexander, I had structure, I had guidance, and I had a mentor to hand me the sword when life handed me the knots. Now, tonight's theme is about opportunity. And you're going to hear me say it over and over again. Because if you hand a young person the right opportunity, they don't just survive, they thrive. That's right. Thank you. I'm going to pull you guys back into this and not going to let you off the hook. So, I had two great parents when I grew up. They loved me. My life was anything but stable. I grew up in a divorced family. I was in and out of 6 different schools by the time that I reached middle school. I was labeled with ADHD, hyperactivity. They prescribed me Ritalin. Show of hands, who? Is that still a thing? You make me feel like a zombie. They put me in small classes, and I began to hate school. I started using drugs. I started using alcohol. And I was in a downward spiral. I was heading nowhere fast. But you remember what we started off with. We started off with opportunity. And my opportunity came in the form of a free apprenticeship program. And for a kid that hated school, this was everything. I got to leave school, go to work, earn a paycheck, and I started thriving. I did graduate, just barely. This is my four-wheel drive pickup truck, and I thought that it would be a good idea at the football game, senior night, to do a huge 360 burnout in the parking lot. Strong negotiations from my dad, and they did allow me to graduate. They didn't want me there another year. I don't blame them. But after that, I started to thrive. You see this little greenhouse right here? This was my very first house. I bought my first house at the age of 18. Who remembers, show of hands in here, who remembers when houses were $68,000? I know. I got my journeyman's card at the age of 20. I was 20 years old. Now, this was a big deal because at the age of 20, I was running an apartment complex with 10 men. Most of these guys were decades older than me. So having my card gave me some street cred. I felt like I, earned the spot. But I didn't stop there. I kept chasing opportunity. I got my master's license in electrical. I studied to get my master's license in plumbing. I studied to get my master's license in HVAC. I kept on chasing opportunity. I got my master gas fitters. I got my Class A contractor's license. I got LEED certified in the U.S. Green Building Council. I started a real estate business. And after 30 years of working for my dad, he allowed me to buy his company. I bought an HVAC company. I started a plumbing business organically. And I built an amazing leadership team. We came up with these core values right here. Driven to excellence, servant-hearted, integrity in action, and joyful engagement. These are our core values, and anybody that comes into our organization has these core values. We hire and fire by them. So today, I am a tradesman turned CEO of a $40 million a year enterprise. With one core focus, and that is to make life more comfortable. Now, like I said, we are moving into section 1, building partnerships with business and industry. I call this a business school partnership, and you'll hear me refer to that a lot. So, we often assume that success is built on talent alone. The smarter you are, the further you'll go, right? But intelligence alone isn't enough to guarantee success. Let me introduce you to Christopher Langan. In his book, Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell profiles Christopher Langan, often described as one of the smartest people in America. With an IQ estimated of around 195, that's significantly higher than Albert Einstein. Langan seemed destined for greatness, but his life tells a very different story. You see, Langan had a childhood of hardship. He grew up in extreme poverty. He had an abusive stepfather. Him and his brothers shared a single set of clothes. But he had a mind like no other. He could speak at the age of 3 months old. He could read by the age of 3, and he questioned the existence of God by the age of 5. He passed his SAT score with 100% while taking a nap. Pretty impressive. He got a full scholarship to Reed College, but he lost it when his mother forgot to fill out the financial aid form. He lacked the social capital to advocate for himself, so he dropped out. He had another setback at Montana State, a Again, he got a full scholarship. His car broke down on the way to his morning class. And when he tried to negotiate with the professor to switch to afternoon classes, the professor told him that everybody has to make a sacrifice for an education. So once again, this brilliant man left school. It was a life of unfulfilled potential. He worked as a construction worker, a cowboy, a bar bouncer, and he eventually became a horse rancher. Brilliant, but overlooked. And what he lacked wasn't intelligence. It was mentorship, opportunity. So, this brings us to an essential truth, that it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and more importantly, it's about who helps you along the way. And that's exactly what business school partnerships are. For the last 30 years, my company has partnered with schools, and we've helped students. We've ran mock interviews. We've hired students often for their first job. We've collaborated with teachers on curriculum. We've judged competitions. We've donated training materials, and we've served on advisory boards. Year after year, we've remained committed to that partnership of mentoring students, hiring them, and proving that success isn't just about talent. It's about access, encouragement, and structured support. I want to share a success story with you. This is Brandon Lane. Brandon Lane came to work for our company in the early 2000s. Brandon Lane came out of the pre-apprenticeship program. It was a business school partnership. Now, Brandon Lane, like me, graduated school, bought his first house, started a family. Brandon Lane quickly rose through the company, found himself in our service department, where he learned the skill of troubleshooting that set him apart from some of his peers. From there, he went on to estimate. He was estimating millions of dollars with extreme accuracy. From there, Brandon's next job was a project manager. Brandon's last job that he just finished was a $10 million assisted living project. Now, I just want to pause right there for just a second. What type of skills would you want somebody to have that was going to run a $10 million job? Maybe leadership. Maybe you want them to be a strategic thinker, right? Good financial acumen, right? All of that started for Brandon in a pre-apprenticeship program. It started with a business school partnership. Brandon's advice, he says that he attributes his success to having a mentor, somebody to come alongside him and coach him. Let me introduce you to John Paul. John Paul also came from the pre-apprenticeship program, business school partnership. Same thing, graduated, bought a house. His mentor was Dave O'Donnell. Dave O'Donnell was a former Marine. He taught JP discipline, but listen to this. He taught JP how to take a big project and break it down into small, manageable steps. Well, wouldn't you guess that JP's next project would be the Dominion Tower? The Dominion Tower is in Richmond, Virginia. It's 22 stories tall, and it's 6 stories below ground. When I would walk the project, it would take me anywhere from 6 to 8 miles a day just to walk this project. The project had an accelerated schedule, and it had $50,000 a day liquidated damages. So you guys can do the math and figure out if our company was late 1 week, how much would it cost? And that was the pressure JP had. Today, the building stands as a trophy for the city of Richmond. JP's advice to apprentices is simple. He says, be consistent. Show up every day. But more importantly, get there early. So, if you're sitting in the audience tonight and you are trying to foster a business-school partnership, Here's a couple ideas for you. Host industry speaking events like the one that we're having this evening. Arrange site visits, job shadows. Collaborate on curriculum and design. Create internships and apprenticeship pathways. Engage in community networking events. Develop problem-solving partnerships. Use social media to highlight partnerships and success stories to inspire others. And then finally, establish a formal advisory board. Bring leaders into the conversation to guide a long-term strategy. Listen, opportunity changed my life. It changed Brandon's life. And it changed JP's life. And it can change the life of countless others if we're willing to build the bridges to connect talent to opportunity. All right, number 2, work-based learning, youth-registered apprenticeships. So, let's go back to Alexander. I want to ask you a question. Does anybody, show of hands, anybody know who Alexander's mentor was? Who was his mentor?
Aristotle.
That's right. What do we know about Aristotle? Aristotle was born in 384 BC in ancient Greece. He studied under Plato and later became the tutor of Alexander the Great. He wrote on nearly every subject: logic, ethics, politics, biology, physics, and poetry. He was an advocate for observation and critical thinking. And he laid the foundation for how we think about reasoning, mortality, and government. So let's go back to that moment. Alexander draws his sword in a moment of decision making. Do we believe that Aristotle poured into Alexander to form the way that he solved problems? Absolutely. Absolutely he did. He had an amazing mentor. And so what can we learn from apprenticeships, and what do they share with Aristotle's teaching? Structured learning. Aristotle trained Alexander in ethics, politics, critical thinking, curiosity, and lifelong learning. He encouraged independent thought and exploration. In the practical application, Alexander applied Aristotle's teaching. Ethical and leadership guidance. Aristotle shaped Alexander's understanding of justice. The apprentice surpassing the master, Alexander expanded on Aristotle's teaching. And he forged his own legacy. And then finally, their relationship changed the course of history. So apprenticeships work the same way, guiding young professionals into successful, lasting careers. I started a pre-apprenticeship program. This was my first electrical mechanic. I was 15 years old. Now let me describe this guy for you. He had oil-streaked arms. He was built like a heavyweight boxer, and he had a permanent scowl that could make a grown man rethink his life's choices. Every mistake that I made earned a gruff lecture. And anytime I struggled, he'd say, "Put your back into it, kid," and then he'd walk away, leaving me to figure it out on my own. But over time, I realized that he wasn't just teaching me how to wire circuits. He was teaching me resilience. And the day that I wired my first panel, he didn't say a word. He just nodded. That nod meant everything. And looking back now, I see the tradesmen aren't just trained in the trades, they're forged. And the best lessons in life aren't handed to you, they're earned. And by the way, his name was Razor. This is actually Razor. He's a really good guy. And he really helped me. But let's just take a pause here for a moment. Does anybody recall a time in their life when you had a mentor, you had a parent, you had somebody, and instead of going to them, you took your own path and you figured it out? Show of hands, who remembers a time in their own life like that? Wasn't that empowering? And isn't that what a good mentor does? They build their apprentices up and let them fail. They let them make those decisions. So what is a youth registered apprenticeship? It's designed for high school students, juniors, and seniors. It's a paid work experience under a seasoned professional. professional. It combines on-the-job training with related technical instruction. It's OJT. It is a high school credit. It's a seamless transition into an adult apprenticeship. It is the perfect blend of education and workforce readiness. And what is work-based learning? Work-based learning bridges the gap between the classroom and instruction. Real-world experience. It reinforces academic learning through hands-on application. Provides mentorship, structure, builds career readiness, problem solving, teamwork, adaptability, and aligns industry. Examples would be apprenticeships, internships, job shadows, field projects. In 2019, I had a bold vision for our company, that we would be able to build our very own apprenticeship program in our school, or in our company. Now, this apprenticeship program would be nationally accredited. And I think you guys had a couple speakers speak on this this week. We are nationally accredited with NCCER. This apprenticeship program that we built is a partnership with a pre-apprenticeship program. And that today, that dream has become a reality. We've graduated 3 classes, not with just certificates, but with confidence and opportunity. And it builds a pipeline for us. So if we want the workforce to thrive, we need to stop leaving success to chance. The future belongs to those who create opportunity. Now, let's picture this, an 18-year-old walking across the graduation stage, not with just a diploma, but already 1 year into a nationally accredited, state-approved apprenticeship program. Thanks to our pre-apprenticeship, students graduate with a full year of hands-on training. And by the age of 21, they've completed their apprenticeship, fully credentialed, and starting out earning around $60,000 a year. Now, show of hands, because I know there's some parents in here that have kids that are my age. Who would be okay if their 21-year-old came home with no debt, making $60,000 a year? I'd be okay with it. They're building careers, financial stability, and a future full of opportunity. And it's not just a head start, it's a launch pad. Oh man, we're burning through this. So I want to maybe reveal a little more about me. I had thought about this section a whole lot. And there was many different variations of what I was going to share tonight. But ever since I was a little kid, I loved martial arts. Is there anybody else in here that's a martial artist or, okay? A couple of them, all right, nice. All right, so you know how they have these boards that you break at the competitions and at the, when you get a new belt? You know those? Yeah. Well, no knock against anybody that's a martial artist, but I'm pretty sure that these boards are specifically meant to break. I don't know your experience, but they are designed to break. So anyways, I'm a young man, and you know, I am a ninja master. And my dad is moving this, he has me helping him move this oak table. And I just know in my mind that the best way to move this table is for me to chop this oak table in half with my ninja punch. I'm sure I can do it. He's like, Greg, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm like, no, Dad, I got this. I'm a ninja. So I get my horse stance, I draw back. I broke my hand, right? Boxer's fracture, broke in half. This is a picture of me breaking an actual board. But listen, sometimes in life, we learn the things that we're not supposed to do, right? So if we're going to be a lifelong learner, sometimes we're learning the things that we shouldn't be doing. And again, man, you guys are probably thinking at this point that you've got the wrong guy up here. I was invited to fight in this tournament. It was called Rumble in the Berg. I was the main event. I was kickboxing, and I was faced up against a gentleman named Michael Lawrence. Now, Michael Lawrence was he was also a ninja. And as soon as the fight started, he came across the ring and just threw this flurry of punches. And I kicked him. And when I kicked him, I knew that I hurt him. I could tell as soon as my foot landed. I said, yeah. So next time he comes in, I'm gonna get him with that. I'm gonna win. So Mike comes across the ring again. Mike was a southpaw. Comes again, big round. I'm like, this is my moment. And I go to throw the kick, and Mike, he does something different. He sticks his hands up like this, and my leg snaps in half across his elbows. Fight was over immediately. Now, we're talking about lifelong learning, maybe learning things that we shouldn't do, right? But at this point, I couldn't kickbox anymore. I loved kickboxing. It was my whole life. I lived for it. When I wasn't working, it was kickboxing. So I decided to do jiu-jitsu. Now, in this picture right here, I had just gotten my purple belt. And in this particular match, this guy was kicking my butt for 8 minutes straight. The matches are 8 minutes. But I knew one move. I learned this one move. And you know what they say? Don't be afraid of the guy that knows 1,000 kicks. Be afraid of the guy that practices one kick 1,000 times. That was my move. I had a move. It's called the bow and arrow. That was my move. In the last 10 seconds of the round, I got the bow and arrow. That's me at the bottom. I choked him out, and I won gold. I won a gold medal. But I had to keep on learning, right? I had to learn something new. I had to learn a whole new set of skills. And it was rewarding. It was fun. Look at the smile on my face. I still remember that moment in great detail about what it was like to struggle, to be getting beat, and then at the last minute to win. But it took years and years and years of learning these skills. Does anybody in here know how long it takes to get a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Long time.
About 10 years. This is me getting my black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. Now I want to pause right here. Is there any buddy in this room that has a bachelor's degree? Show me your hands. Okay? All right, hands down. Who has a master's degree? Okay? How about a PhD?
Getting there?
Okay? Let me ask you a question. When you got your degree, did you stop learning? You probably leveled up, right? You probably started learning more, right? You had to level up. You had to take your game to the next level. And that's what I believe that we can show young students, is that we can foster a growth mindset. We can make learning relevant to the real world. We can teach adaptability over memorization. We can encourage self-directed learning. Show of hands, who's learned how to do something off of YouTube? Yeah, wow. I mean, what a great way to learn. And then finally, we can model lifelong learning. Students learn by example. And if educators show that they are continuously learning, taking new courses, exploring new ideas, and adapting teaching methods, students will embrace that mindset that learning is lifelong and it never stops. So let's recap the themes. We talked about business-school partnerships. No matter what you teach, it doesn't have to be the apprenticeship program. It doesn't have to be the trades. We talked about work-based learning, youth registered apprenticeships, and how it leads into an apprenticeship. We talked about hands-on learning, bridging the gap between education and industry. We talked about being a lifelong learner and the need for young people to understand that learning is lifelong. Here's my challenge to you. Don't just admire the idea. Be a part of the solution. Connect with a student, build a bridge between business and education, stand up for a system that truly prepares the next generation. Now, let's go back to Alexander. There was a moment of a puzzle, a prophecy, and a moment of bold decision making. Now picture our high school students. staring at their own tangled futures. But they don't have to slice through it alone. They have us. They have educators. They have businesses. They have mentors to hand them the sword of structure and guidance so that they have a shot. Let's give them that opportunity. Because talent is everywhere, and opportunity is not. Thank you.